Hello, I'm Lorette Legan, President of the Jacksonville Onslow Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of the Chamber's Governmental Affairs Committee, I want to thank you for joining us for our Forum Onslow. The Chamber's Governmental Affairs Committee works with government agencies on issues that affect our business community. We monitor legislative issues that impact local business. We promote partnerships between business, government, military, and education, and we use these forums to create an awareness on topics that are important to our entire community. The sponsor for this Meet the Candidates Forum is Sanders Ford. Sanders Ford is a family-owned Ford store that has been serving Onslow County and surrounding counties since 1938. They believe a well-educated community is essential for a strong democracy. Sanders Ford is proud to be a sponsor of this forum, which is designed to better educate the voters in Onslow County. And now I'll turn it over to our moderator, Elliot Potter.
Thanks, Lorette. Candidates first, I want to thank you guys for coming in, some from close range and some from further away. Like you, we have put this program together in a relative hurry. And I know that your campaigns face the same challenges. Again, this is a primary, this is a special election to fill the seat that was vacated by the death of the late Walter B. Jones. And I know that you all join with me and our condolences continue. He was a very fine servant for this area, and now we're looking forward to the future and replacing him, and we have a large field of candidates, both in the Republicans and the Democratic primaries, and we also have a field of candidates in the Libertarian, and we hope to get with the Libertarians and the Republicans later, but the Democrats are up first, and so we appreciate this, and it's a very important election. I want to go over the format with everyone so everybody understands exactly what we're doing. This is not a true debate. It is a forum. And questions will be general in nature. They're going to be related to the key issues that are facing the 3rd District in our nation. They were developed by me and with some input from the Governmental Affairs Committee here at the Chamber. Like I say, we intend these Chamber programs. We've been doing them a lot of years. And what we try to do here is we try to let everybody put the best foot forward and let their message get out there. These are forums, they're not debates. We ask that candidates address the questions posed to them and not address remarks to each other. Each of you will have an opportunity to make introductory remarks okay, I wasn't echo, was it? Okay. I tell you, this pollen gets in your head. You really never know what's happening. Each of you will receive an opportunity to make introductory remarks to open up your first appearance at the podium. And then after that, you will be seated. Everybody will finish, but we'll have another summation period. That time at the podium is going to be between about 5 minutes. The opening statement, and then I'm going to hit you with as many questions as I can. Please don't take any longer. You will be on a timer for the questions, and they're about a minute apiece. So what we'd like you to keep your answers to about a minute so we can get to as many as possible. You will not receive every question. I've got maybe 10 or 12 prepared. We may get through 5 or 6 for each one of you. What that means is there may be some question that you want to answer that you don't get asked. That would be a fine place to start your summation, which you would get, and you're going to get 90 seconds for that, and that's your second appearance at the podium. So in addition to your regular summary remarks, I would urge you to maybe, you can respond to something that was said, or you can answer a question that perhaps you wanted to call a shot at and didn't get to. So with that, and I'll also, one more thing is that one thing we try to do here is we try to treat all of our candidates equally. That means we like to, we can clap now if you want to. I'll join you with that. But let's hold our applause again until the end of the program, okay? So that's what we like to do it that way. Any questions? All right, very good. Well, let me, you know what? Ernest Reeves said that he was ready to follow everybody, right? But we need him to go ahead and take to the podium. So, this is Mr. Humphrey, Ernest, right?
That's right.
Yeah, you ready to go?
You want me to go first?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I know you said you wanted to follow, but
So how many minutes do we have for opening?
you have 5 minutes. You have a 1 minute opening statement, but go ahead and I'll ask you the question.
Okay, and so I have 1 minute to introduce myself?
Let me ask you the question, then you could get started. Please take a minute to introduce yourself and to highlight what you feel distinguishes you from the other candidates in this race, in this primary.
Yes, good afternoon. I would like to thank Mr. Elliott and the Jacksonville, Onslow County Chamber for this great opportunity to be here. I think what distinguishes myself from everybody else is my personality.
Your personality.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, then I'll go ahead with the next question, which is, should the Democrats in the U.S. House try to find common ground with President Trump, and what issues might offer the best hope for cooperation?
Yes, I do think that cooperating with the president and the Congress together to do more for the 3rd Congressional District in this nation. I think infrastructure is something that we can definitely have common ground on. Military strength, because I'm a retired military officer with more than 9.5 years enlisted time. I served 6.5 years as a sergeant, and so I've served all over the world, the Middle East, and military is very important to me, and that's something I'll be willing to cooperate with the president on.
What do you see as the top concern facing Americans, veterans, and how would you address that issue?
Our veterans, homelessness, lack of jobs, lack of opportunities. I had one of my friends that some of you all voted for me in 2016. I became the Democratic nominee for the 3rd Congressional District. And as I was running, one of my friends said to me, he said, I love you, but I can't vote for you. And I said, well, if you don't mind, why not? He said, well, I'm going to vote for Congressman Jones. And he explained to me he was a homeless veteran, couldn't get any help, and Congressman Jones helped him. I gave him a hug, told him I would vote for Congressman Jones too.
This is a question I hope to get to all the candidates, but up to $500 million in projects at the state's military bases, including Camp Lejeune, New River and Cherry Point in the 3rd District, could be impacted by the President's declaration of a national emergency at the southern border. The Commandant of the Marine Corps has said that such plans could have an adverse impact on military readiness. What is your position on diverting military resources to pay for border security?
Well, earlier today, the acting secretary did say that he was going to convert almost $1 billion. Well, actually, they have money in the fund. And I retired from the Pentagon and happened to work in the budget office before. So I understand that those decisions are made at the highest levels of Army. But of the Department of Defense. But I can assure you, should I be fortunate enough to represent this district, that I'll do everything that I can to ensure that those funds are supposed to come to the 3rd District will remain in the 3rd District.
What is your position on climate change and how it should affect national policy?
Climate change is real. I believe in green policies and doing everything that we can to ensure that we protect the environment and making sure that those unnatural phenomena that have happened, that we deal with them, straight up. I do know that a lot of people say a lot of things happen due to climate change, and they're absolutely correct. I had the awesome opportunity to spend 4 years at Seattle Tacoma International Airport, more of an emergency operations center. We dealt with everything on the West Coast and Far East Pacific, and of course, something similar, but not exactly what you're talking about, but they had Mount Pinatubo exploded. We moved some 10,000 people back to the West Coast. So things that, and by the way, it was not supposed to, but due to, the way that climate change happen, things do happen also in oceans and things of that nature.
Okay. We got about 2 minutes left. The issue of immigration is a complex one that continues to divide the nation. What do you see as the key concerns that must be resolved? DACA,
obviously, making sure that we take care of TPS, those temporary protected status individuals, and then we have to deal with the 10 to 20 million people that are here illegally. I have a different perspective because I live about 20 miles north of the Mexican border. That was my second assignment in the military in southern Arizona. And so I have a lot of friends that live down on the border, have friends that's stationed at Fort Bliss. I did temporary duty down at Fort Bliss. My cousin was stationed at Del Rio, Texas, so understand that region very, very well. And so, and like I said before, I spent 4 years at an international airport almost, working with customs and immigration in all branches of the service, dealing with primarily the Navy, Army, Air Force, Marines, and working on behalf of the United States government. So, like I say, I'll be willing to work, with the Congress to ensure that we protect DACA recipients, making sure that we take care of TPS, make sure we come up with a plan, a reasonable plan that both sides can agree to. I believe in being in the middle. No one side have their way. You got to come to the middle in order to make it right for everybody.
Okay. And one final question, but you only got about 30 seconds on this one, and that is the future of Obamacare. It's again being called into question, both legally and politically. What do you think should happen to the Affordable Care Act?
Well, the Affordable Care Act, I support the Affordable Care Act, but it does have some problems, Cadillac tax, other areas, and so I'm willing to work along with the Congress in order to either improve it or come up with a plan that can help people have health care. I believe that everyone should have health care or access to health care, and so I'm willing to work in the middle to make that happen.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being the first one. All right, our second is Alan Thomas. How are you, sir? If you would, please take a minute to introduce yourself to our audience, and please highlight what you feel distinguishes you from the other candidates in this primary race.
Well, thank you everyone in Onslow County for having us, and it's great to be here. I'm a native of Eastern North Carolina. I was born, grew up in Vanceboro and New Bern. My dad, for 25 years, drove to Jacksonville every day, an hour here, an hour back, to take care of our family. It's a community very close to me. I think my definable differences is serving 3 terms as mayor in a city. We don't print money. We know how to be innovative. We know about the bottom line. I think as a private business owner, someone that know what it's like to have to meet payroll, extremely important. And I'm the one, I think, that has worked closely on the federal, state, and local level, running the Global Transport now, creating jobs right now. I think the thing that I bring is I can hit the ground running immediately. I'm already working with Senator Tillis and Senator Burr, and those on the federal level, creating jobs today, over 1,500 jobs in the past year and a half. And I can't wait to get to work for Eastern North Carolina and get these things moving forward.
Okay, your first question is, again, should the Democrats in the U.S. House try to find common ground with President Trump, and what issues might offer the best hope for cooperation?
Well, I think like any leader, and what I have done in my role, working with Brock Long currently, working with FEMA and working with Homeland Security and what we've done post-hurricane, I think you absolutely need to work with the President of the United States to find common ground on things that are going to be good for this district and for the United States of America. I think things that are being done in justice reform, I think there's definitely a clear area to work together, and also in economic development.
Okay. The future of Obamacare is again being called into question, both legally and politically. What do you think should happen to the Affordable Care Act?
I think it obviously needs to go through some significant reform. What I'm concerned is about people being excluded because of pre-existing conditions. I do know that it was announced, I believe, today to try to reform all of the ACA, and I think that's a problem. We should not throw families out that have pre-existing conditions, and everybody should have the opportunity for care. I think we need specialized programs around small business to be able to allow them to be able to be excluded from some of these predatory elements. I think with this that will make be able to care, but also for small businesses to be able to take care of their employees. I think that's been the big problem. So we need to work together and definitely reform, but this is definitely something that can be done. We have to make this a priority. Healthcare is something that is not just a privilege, it is a right across this nation, and we got to do what we can because that is the basis for everything for quality of life.
A question that I asked earlier, and I'm going to repeat it again, and I'll ask all the candidates this, up to $500 million in projects at the state's military bases, including Camp Lejeune, New River, and Cherry Point in this 3rd district, could be impacted by the President's declaration of a national emergency at the southern border. The Commandant of the Marine Corps has said that such plans could have an adverse effect on military readiness. What is your position on diverting military resources to pay for border security?
Well, I don't think it's a luxury to have safe water here in Onslow County. I understand a multi-million-dollar water treatment plant that would be put to the side. Healthcare facilities would be put to the side. I think we need to prioritize and understand if we're going to be serious about border security, we need to be serious about the technology around that to accomplish that. But not at the cost of our service people, not at the cost of our veterans, not at the cost of people around this area that have been impacted by some past bad decisions. So I think that obviously we need strong border security, but not at the expense of our facilities in North Carolina. And if you're an elected official in this state, you better put this community first. And it's okay to stand up to any other elected leader, regardless of who they are. They're all human. And advocate for what's best for Eastern North Carolina. And that's what I would always do.
What do you see as the future of Social Security, including any changes or new approaches that you may feel will be necessary going forward?
Well, I think there's a real issue in terms of being able to sustain Social Security, you know, with the baby boomers and the aging differences that are happening in the country. We have to continue. We've made a covenant with our workforce that we're going to take care of them as they move through and become seniors to retirement age. We have to be realistic that we're becoming top-heavy in terms of those that have done their work in their communities, and we need to be able to protect that. So I think we need to, again, prioritize our citizens and be able to take care of them through Social Security and be able to make that happen. Nobody's saying that's going to be easy, but we got to make sure that we protect those that have Social Security coming to them and have a plan that will be sustainable going forward into the future. But that requires a real honest look at where we're going and how we're spending money in so many other areas, I think, that are coming conflict.
Okay, I'm going to let this be your last question. Our timer, my 5-minute timer isn't working, so I'm sort of guessing here. But
I'll look at the clock. I'll help you out.
Pardon me?
I'll look at the clock. I'll help you out.
Okay. The third district now includes a substantial portion of North Carolina's coastline. And the issue of offshore drilling continues to create debate in the region. As a member of Congress, what position would you take on opening areas off the southeastern U.S. coast to drilling for oil and gas?
This is a conversation that, in my role with the Global Transpark, we cover many areas. And energy access is something that I've discussed with the Tillis camp and also with Senator Burr, and also Walter Jones at great length. And his opinion had a lot of impact on me. I think that right now, the United States is generating energy on a level and for the foreseeable future beyond what we've done in many, many years. With other forms of energy opportunities coming forward, I think we need to not put at risk our coastlines and that which is so important for the future of North Carolina. And I stand with where Congressman Jones stood, and I stand lockstep with him in terms of opposing offshore drilling and seismic testing, anything of that nature at this point, until some point where that will become necessary. I don't see that anytime in the near future. I think this country is generating plenty of resources, and we have opportunities, I think, in other resources as well for alternative opportunities that will continue to move us forward as a nation.
Mr. Thomas, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to work on the timing issue here. But we can go ahead because I think we can kind of guesstimate or do a pretty good job with it. So the next up is Dana Outlaw. And we've been joined by Greg Humphrey. How are you, sir? Pardon me? I'm sorry, you're one of the Libertarian candidates. Yeah, well, we'll be with the Libertarians here right after the Democrats. We may have a short break, and we'll get on with the program then. But now we've got at the podium, we got Mr. Dana Outlaw. Sir, would you please introduce yourself to the audience and highlight what you feel distinguishes you from the other candidates in the race?
I have a very unique situation. I don't know that many of you are aware of this, but for the last 40 years, I've been coming to Jacksonville doing real estate appraisals, all the way from Hubert to Richlands to Swansboro and all over Sneads Ferry, all the way back. I'm over here two days a week. You probably don't even know that. I've been in many of your living rooms. I know firsthand what it's all about for the military, both the active and the retired. I know about the hardships. I know about the mental toll. I've been in your homes. I'm really concerned about our military. I live in New Bern. I have 4 children. 2 of them are here today, and my grandchild, Keely, is with me. And so I'm very interested in serving the district. The 2/3 of your coast is right here in this district. And there's a lot of things we have to work on, but the main thing I want to express to you is all my career has been one-on-one with families and with businesses and trying to make it happen and trying to recover from things like hurricanes. And that's what I want to do as a congressman.
All right, well, thank you very much. The question I've asked, opened up here with all the Democratic hopefuls here, would be, should the Democrats in the U.S. House try to find common ground with President Trump and the Republicans? And what issues might offer the best hope for cooperation?
Well, you know, I'm just so excited to be in this room today with all these conservative candidates for Congress, the ones that really, truly want to save lives here through pro-life, the ones that want to have a secure border. And so I'm here as a conservative candidate for government here, and I just want to get out and be able to serve Eastern North Carolina with those values. And so was there anything specifically important that you wanted to ask of that?
No, if there's as a Democrat, of course, you would be in the majority in the House in reaching across, but you've answered the question, so we'll
Yes,
go
sir.
on. Up to $500 million in projects at the state's military bases, including Camp Lejeune, New River, and Cherry Point in the 3rd District, could be impacted by the President's declaration of a national emergency at the southern border. The Commandant of the Marine Corps has said such plans could have an adverse effect on military readiness. What is your position on diverting military resources to pay for border security?
Well, one thing I think is I heard something you said could. It didn't say would. The first line of defense of this nation is the Marine Corps, both Cherry Point and Camp Lejeune. So the most important thing is for an effective congressman to go up to Washington and lobby to make sure that no cuts happen to our defense here in North Carolina. Because North Carolina is part of what makes this nation the great nation we are. The rapid deployment opportunity of the Marine Corps to serve and defend our nation. And so I don't necessarily see that you're going to have cuts here. I don't see why you can't have border security and at the same time have the F-35s and all the other programs we have both at Camp Lejeune and at Cherry Point. I absolutely don't know that you have to be cut. You have to go out and prove that you don't need cuts here.
What do you see as the top concern facing America's veterans, and how would you address that issue?
Homelessness, lack of... Do you know 27,000 veterans in North Carolina do not have health care right now? They're in a donut hole. You talk about the Carolina Care, you talk about doing nothing. You talk about missing out on $13 billion in federal monies that you're paying taxes on that are going to 36 other states and the District of Columbia. You talk about Vice President Pence, who his own state adopted Medicare expansion. So part of the Medicaid expansion is the veterans that are not being served with health care. Homelessness. How about mental illness? Have you been in the living rooms and talked to some of the veterans that have actually seen military duties overseas? I have. And I know, you can probably see it in my face, the concerns that we all ought to have for those that defended our nation.
All right, thank you. Some farm operations in North Carolina have been the subject of federal lawsuits and judgments that have come up into the millions of dollars. Some farmers believe their very existence is at stake. What, if anything, should Congress do to intervene?
Well, you need to support your president, because this president, unlike a lot of presidents, is not just going to tip those through the tulips about these issues. You've had imbalances in trade with China, Mexico, Canada, and a lot of other countries. So this is the first president that is trying to go out and make and refine the problems that we have in tariffs. The short term is holistically, it's hurting. We have a $3 billion agricultural exporting program in North Carolina, but you only have about 26,000 farmers left. So we've got to do what we can to support the farming. And part of that is we've got to go up there effectively with a congressman that can go up there and support agriculture in North Carolina, because this is hurting. But what's worse? Which one of those medicines do you want to take? They both taste bad. Do you want to not refine the tariffs that are causing us not to be competitive with our auto industry and all our other technologies in China because they've got unrealistic trade barriers precluding our product from coming to their shores? You guys ever seen all them storage bins around there that you can buy for $500? You know why? Because nobody wants them back in China. All that stuff's coming over here. It's too expensive to put that box on a ship and take it back to China because there's too much stuff coming this way. Support the president on tariffs.
Let me get down to one more question if we can get it out real quick. What do you see as the future of Social Security?
I see the future of Social Security is I have paid into it. I'm 64 years old, and I want my money.
All right, Mr. Ike Johnson. Mr. Johnson, appreciate you coming all this way.
My pleasure.
Mr. Johnson from Jacksonville. Please take a minute to introduce yourself to our audience and highlight what you feel distinguishes you from the other candidates in this race.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I am a candidate for the Congressional District 3. What distinguishes me from the other candidates is that I care. I want to stick a pin in that. I care about our families. I care about our future. I care about our military veterans. And not only do I care about those things, but I have the experience to get the job done as well. Every American deserves access to quality health care and a public education. I care about our future. We need innovative thinking to diversify our rural economy and to bring more jobs to the 3rd District. I care about our military and our veterans. We've got to stand up and make good on our promises that we made to our veterans for protecting this country.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Let's move on. We came to the time limit there. Should the Democrats in the U.S. House try to find common ground with President Trump and the Republicans? And what issues might offer the best hope for cooperation?
I think they all have a possibility, and definitely we should cross the aisle or whatever it takes. My position is always people first. And usually when I start with people first, I can come to the conclusion, or we can come together and solve the rest of the problems. We can get the stuff where people need it. We can get their problems solved, but we start with people first. And absolutely, we will cross the aisles, whatever it takes to take care of the 3rd District of North Carolina. And I'm all in favor of collaborating with anyone that can help the 3rd District.
Okay. And our third question that we've asked everybody here is up to $500 million in projects at states' military bases, including Camp Lejeune, New River, and Cherry Point, all in the 3rd District, could be impacted by the President's declaration of a national emergency at the southern border. The Commandant of the Marine Corps has said such plans could have an adverse effect on military readiness. What is your position on diverting military resources to pay for border security?
I am very proud of the Commandant of the Marine Corps for taking a stand on what is needed and what is important, and that is our military readiness. After spending 27 years in the Marine Corps myself, both officer and enlisted, I understand the mission, I understand the training, I understand the readiness, and I understand what it takes to make sure that when the bell goes off or the whistle blows, it is important that the Marine Corps is ready to go. And so he makes no words about what is needed here in Eastern North Carolina to make sure that that money is not siphoned off to other things, which are maybe important, but not as important as making sure that our military is ready.
What is your position on climate change and how it should affect national policy?
I'm not big on boxes. We call it a lot of things. Something is going on, Mr. Potter.
If we look at our climate, if we look at what is happening around the world, we look at the ice caps, and I know there's a lot of denial going on around about what is going on in our environment, in our world, as it pertains to our environment. But let me tell you, whatever it is, we need to start to prepare for it. And so spending the dollars to improve our structures, to improve our roadways, to improve our infrastructure, to deal with the phenomena that we see coming at us year after year is critically important. Yes, I do believe in climate change. And for those who don't, just continue to watch what's going on in the atmosphere, and whatever you call it, we are dealing with it.
The issue of immigration is a complex one that continues to divide the nation. What do you see as the key concerns there that must be resolved?
That's a good place where we can cross the aisle. We've had 2 years of this administration where they could have crossed the aisle on this issue and nothing happened. Then all of a sudden, we have an emergency. Not good. Not good. It is important that we secure the border, no doubt about it. How we do it, a lot of ways. But to spend $5 billion plus to do that with the wall is maybe not the best way to spend all of that money. There's a lot of technology, there's a lot of other things that we can do, but I'm not convincingly sold on spending it on just that one issue.
Okay, let's get one more question in.
Okay?
What do you see as the top concern facing Americans' veterans? And how would you address that issue?
I think it's been stated, homelessness, their Medicare. There's a big issue of maybe a lack of empathy. We have see some stats sometime where we see almost 22 people a day committing suicide, military veterans. And that's not all from the wars that we see now. We go all the way back to World War II and the Vietnam War. I think our society need to put a little bit more emphasis on the value that our military bring to this society. They put their life on the line for the liberties that we enjoy. And when they come home sometime, it is not very appreciated. It's not, I'm sure it's appreciated, but it's not shown very well. I think we can do a better job as a community. I know Jacksonville has really stepped up their game over the years, but it is imperative that the military feel warm and loved for what they do.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we have ended that portion of the program, and now we're going to get back to the summary remarks, which you get another chance at the podium. And we will start with Dana Outlaw. You have a minute and a half. We'll try to please try to adhere to the time limit on this. Well, not that you did before.
Part of being elected and supporting your county, your city, your district involves communication levels. It involves structure and the foundation and ability to empathize with folks and to understand and do your homework about what the issue is. Probably some of your questions, the questions that were asked earlier, you saw one side of me. That's the side of me when that power was off with Duke Energy for 6 hours in New Bern a couple of months ago. That side of me was actually this morning talking with Suddenlink about both the bundling of goods and improper pricing and the lack of service. So sometimes you get to be nice at this game, and that's 80% of the time, and sometimes you have to step it up a little bit. And that's what I want to do. I want to reach across the aisle. For 3 days during Hurricane Florence, I rode around with two aldermen I don't agree with a lot. But we rode around with a common cell phone and took care of the welfare of our city together. You have to be a team. Being a congressman is not about securing 1,800 jobs somewhere or getting some big grant, because we're all going to do this together now, or we're not going to do it at all. So for folks that want a leader that will go to Congress and come home and get in that mobile office, am I out of time?
Finish your sentence.
Sir?
You can finish your sentence.
Well, you know, I'm a guy that can be all things you need as a congressman. I can be firm and serious when you're being disenfranchised. And I can get the old bass guitar out and get the old country band, and I can go play some music for you when it's time to have fun.
Okay, well, there's the sentence. Appreciate it. Mr. Thomas, Alan Thomas.
There was a report written in 1964 about hurricane mitigation across all of eastern North Carolina. Only 5% of that report was implemented in this half of the state. I think that whoever the next congressperson is needs to kick the door down with the Army Corps of Engineers and get serious about what we're going to do about hurricane mitigation going forward. It's an imperative item for me, for my relatives all across the east, from Dare County all the way down to Carteret and Craven and everywhere in between. I think we have a real sense of urgency about our economy. We need to get serious about that. The next congressman here in this district needs to be someone that can hit the ground running. I created over $900 million in new development in 3 years when I was mayor in Greenville after coming out of a recession, maintaining the lowest taxes in Greenville's history during that period in terms of property tax. We've had great growth. The Transport, we created over 1,500 jobs for people in 21 counties in the past 2 years. So you got to be someone that can hit the ground running and can work on both sides of the aisle. I depended on John Bell. I depended on my Republican colleagues and Democrats across the board on the state. I depended on Tillis to be able to move this area forward. Guys, we need to hit the ground running. Eastern North Carolina needs it. There's a sense of urgency. And yes, as a mayor, I had to deal with 2 hurricanes. Hurricane Matthew evacuating half my city. And then this past year, Hurricane Florence, obviously with the Transport. So I know what it's like to be battle tested. I know what we need to do across eastern North Carolina. Let's work together and bring opportunity here together and make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And I understand that we have been joined by Greg Murphy, or Greg Humphrey, excuse me. Not, I still keep trying to get Mr. Humphrey here. Do what?
I'll tell you when Greg Harper comes.
Okay, please do. I was just told that he was here, but that's not, I guess that's not going to be the case. So let's go ahead and let's go with Mr. Reeves.
And this is a minute and a half?
A minute and a half.
What do I want to say? Oh, my closing, okay, great. Good afternoon. Well, I'm back again, thank you all so much, and I'm too waiting to get my social security. When I'm too young now, but when I do get that age, I'm gonna get my social security too as well. I believe that, I hear a lot of people say, well, you need to hit the ground running, or they battle tested. Well, I'm a combat zone veteran. I'm a former 3-time commanding officer in the military. If you get 1 command as an officer, that's great. If you get 2, that's really great. If you get 3, you must have been on your knees praying, because it's very rare that happens. But I did have a chance to do that, and I commanded 2 units outside of the United States, as well as, like I say, I served in the Middle East as a chief communication officer for the Army's only Force Package 1 unit. They do petroleum, water, and mortuary affairs under FORSCOM. As I said, I was nominated for Pentagon, where I serve as an adjutant for a unit within the Department of Defense, nominated for that job. Afterwards, I was an executive officer, 1 of 2, for the administrative assistant to Secretary of the Army. I also had special duty at the White House. I was assigned and handpicked to be the escort officer for Ambassador Bremer. He ran Iraq. My office kind of oversaw Iraq. And so I believe that I can go to Washington and hit the ground running. I retired from the Pentagon. I know Washington very, very well. I'm the last Democratic nominee to run against Mr. Jones. When I conceded to Mr. Jones, he took my call and told me that I ran an excellent race. And so I hope and pray that you all would definitely consider me to be your next representative. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson. Ike Johnson.
Thank the chamber again. Ms. Potter, for this event. Every day I thank God for the blessings of living in America. America is the greatest country. In spite of the challenges that we face, we can rise to the top. I'm asking for your vote because you deserve a congressman who cares and who can get things done. I care about our families, I care about our future, and I care about our military and our veterans. But most importantly, I have the experience to get things done as well. Visit my website, Ike2019.com, and you will see my resume as well. Get involved in our People Powered campaign, and let's get to work. Thank you.
Well, candidates, that's the end of our program for this segment anyway. And I want to tell you that it's been a lot of fun. You guys are very adhered to the time limits very well, and I very much appreciate it. So now let's give them a hand. Well, I've been trying to get one or two of you up here the whole time, so the Libertarians are here. So we'll go ahead and get started with you folks. The first one will be Tim Harris. We have two people running. Thanks.
Thank you.
We have two people running this year for the Libertarian nomination for the U.S. House seat, District 3. And I'm going to introduce you to Tim Harris. Tim, please, if you would take a minute to introduce yourself to the audience and highlight what you feel distinguishes you from the other Libertarian in this race.
Well, thank you for coming out, Jacksonville, Onslow County. You're in for a treat tonight. This event is a primary event. This is the first primary Libertarians I've ever had out here, so you're about to see some Libertarians. And this is where we differ. What highlights us as Libertarian candidates and what highlights us as candidates different from the parties that you're expecting to see is that we as Libertarians, I personally as a Libertarian and as an American, are concerned first and foremost with the size and scope and power of the government in your life. That is what we're here for. It's why we're seeking to take these seats and go to Washington, to stand for each and every little American who does not have the power to stand in the face of the federal government, in the face of an expanding, exploding federal government that will bankrupt us and leaves us less free every day.
Without the support of either of the major parties, how can a Libertarian member of Congress make an impact in the U.S. House?
This is an interesting question. Lots of people like to talk about reaching across the aisles. I always like to joke that we won't be able to reach across the aisle. They'll give us a little kiddie seat in between. Our role as congressmen, our role as representatives of the people, is to represent the interests of the American in the face of the federal government as an institution. And that requires not that you be a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian. It requires that you stand on principle. It requires that you vote on the principles that we founded this government on and that we must hold this government to. There are Republicans in Congress today who call themselves Libertarian, small L Libertarian. There are, I know, a couple of Democrats who don't currently hold office who consider themselves Libertarian Democrats. It does not require that one be a member of one of the big two established parties, although, in fairness, it is going to be a significant uphill battle for whoever wins, if a Libertarian were to win, in the face of two entrenched parties that are determined to keep us out of the process.
Okay, thank you. We didn't have a chance to go over all the rules with you guys, so that I'll let you know that when your minute time limit hits for each question, just pretty much finish off your sentence and we'll go from there. And then we're trying to get at least 5 or 6 minutes worth of questioning in here. What do you see as the future of Social Security, including any changes or new approaches that you may feel will be necessary going forward?
Social Security was a Ponzi scheme to begin with, and it's a Ponzi scheme that's rapidly exploding to the point where it is not sustainable. It has to end. Unfortunately, we have made promises to generations of Americans. We have taken their money. We have fed that into the Ponzi scheme. And to those people, we owe what they're supposed to get. But at some point, we as a nation are going to have to realize that we have to set a date. I personally believe we literally have to set a date. If you're born after this date, you will not pay Social Security and you will not receive Social Security. And then we just bite the bullet and tighten our belt, pay out Social Security to the remainder of the persons who are supposed to have it, and let it die on its own. Otherwise, it will collapse our federal budget.
Up to $300 million, up to $500 million in projects at the state's military bases, including Camp Lejeune, New River, and Cherry Point, the 3rd District, have been earmarked for possible impact by the President's declaration of a national emergency at the southern border. The Commandant of the Marine Corps has said that such plans could have an adverse impact on military readiness. What is your position on diverting military resources to pay for border security?
Absolutely not. We already spend too much on our military. We already have too large of a defense budget. There's no need to divert more of it to something that we don't need and that isn't going to do the job that it's intended to do anyway. And this goes into a broader question over the powers that we grant the president and whoever currently sits in the White House. I support ending the national emergency declaration system as we have it now, severely scaling that back so that the Congress has much more oversight over the declarations of national emergency. When it comes to issues of border security themselves, this is where we have to address the philosophy of what it is to be an American. Are we supposed to be keeping people out? Or are we supposed to be allowing people to cross those borders freely, to live as they need to, work as they need to, come here, go back, we go over their border, they come over our border? It used to work. It used to work just fine. And I see no reason to spend money, and I see no reason to take resources from these bases to do that.
Some farm operations in North Carolina have been the subject of federal lawsuits and judgments in the millions of dollars. Some farmers believe their very existence is at stake. What, if anything, should Congress do to intervene?
This is a state issue. There's not a lot that Congress can do to directly intervene, but we do need to elect representatives up and down our chain of elections who understand that private property is sacred. Farmers should not be facing the lawsuits that they're facing for using their property in the ways that they see fit. They have followed the rules set by the state of North Carolina. I'm personally ashamed every time I see one of these judgments come back as one farm after another is being put out of business. And it is part of an organized campaign against, in particular, the hog industry. There are others, but in particular, the hog industry. And it's sad, but there's not a lot the Congress can do because this is an issue that lies outside of its purview.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we'll now turn to Shannon Bray. How are you?
Howdy.
Okay. Please take a minute to introduce yourself to our audience and highlight what you feel distinguishes you from your primary opponent.
My name is Shannon Bray. I'm a cybersecurity expert. Up until just this last week, I worked for the DoD, working on some of their secured systems. Prior to going into information technology, I was a submarine veteran in the United States Navy. And since then, I've spent the last 20 years learning information technology. Now, nobody else is up here talking about it. And so what I want to do is kind of state in the next couple seconds why I think it's important. But we're looking at a lot of the issues that we're talking about are important, but we have a lot of other issues that we don't quite yet understand. And I don't feel that our leaders are educated enough to make proper decisions on cyber laws and cybersecurity.
Without the support of either of the major parties, how can a Libertarian member of Congress make an impact in the U.S. House?
It's rough because we get crushed. Right? If you look at what went down in the congressional race in the Raleigh area, 02, they had 3 candidates. One got 10,000 votes or less, and the other ones were 150. almost evenly split. You know, libertarians, we get a limited part of the share, but a lot of it is a lack of understanding of who we are. Some people think we're too far to the right. Some people think we're too far to the left. We're just kind of an idea in the middle. Not necessarily on the middle, but we do have ideas that cross both ways. So for me, being a libertarian is already meeting in the middle. Like Tim says, you know, we got a little coin bag or whatever, but that's just where we are. It's an uphill battle for us.
Okay. Up to $500 million in projects at the state's military bases, including Camp Lejeune, New River, and Cherry Point in the 3rd District, could be impacted by the President's declaration of a national emergency at the southern border. The Commandant of the Marine Corps has said that such plans could have an adverse impact on military readiness. What is your position on diverting military resources to pay for border security?
I'm way against it. It's not even close. Not only does it affect our Marine Corps base here, we had youth programs running out of this base. Hurricane hit, they had to go to Wilmington. We don't have the money to fix the parts of the base that are critical. And that's not even our mission ready stuff. We're diverting funds that we should be using for our DOD purposes for a wall that may not work. And I'm being kind when I say may. I understand that a lot of O3 really wants a physical wall, but a lot of the things that we aren't taking into account for is the people who own that land. You know, it's not going to be on the border of their property. We have to steal their land to build this wall that they don't even want, and then we're going to take money from the Marine Corps and everyone else to pay for it. It just doesn't make sense.
What is your position on climate change and how it should affect national policy?
I'm a computer science major. I'm working on a PhD. I study data. And this is where I differ from some of the people in my party, where I believe climate change is an issue that we actually have to do something about. Now, one of the things that I would like to do is, if the wall has to move forward, turning it into put solar panels on it, use wind turbines, do something to help generate power so that at least those landowners are being compensated some sort of way. But instead of just having physical barriers, try to move things towards a cleaner energy.
The 3rd District now includes a substantial portion of North Carolina's coastline. The issue of offshore drilling continues to create debate in the region. As a member of Congress, what position would you take on opening areas of the southeastern U.S. coast to drilling for oil and gas?
I'm against it. I grew up in South Louisiana, way down south. All we had is oil, oil, oil. Now, that entire community was built on the oil community. But the same thing happens when you have BP go in and you have an oil spill, and it kills everything. It kills your fishing, kills your diving, it kills your entire ecosystem. And all they get to do is say, I'm sorry, come in and clean it up. And I just don't think that we can risk that here in North Carolina. I understand it's jobs, but at the same time, North Carolina's got a beautiful ecosystem. It's got some of the best diving in the world. People come here just to spend time on our coast. We don't want to mess it up with oil derricks and birds swimming in oil, and it's not something that I would support.
And we got about just about 30 seconds here, so I'll let you take on this one. What do you think should happen to the Affordable Care Act?
Ooh, well, it's already been gutted. So it's hard. Is it sustainable in the condition that it is now with the rules that have already been applied to it? I'm not down for Medicare for all, but I do believe that Medicare should be affordable to everyone. I just don't necessarily believe in that grand scheme of things. There's a lot of hocus pocus going on over here, and nobody's talking about what it's going to cost. In my mind, one solution would be to prove it. Prove it on our veterans. Our veterans have a failing VA system. They're committing suicide in the parking lots. And all of a sudden now we think we can take care of everyone when we can't even take care of our veterans. So if we're able to do a Medicare for our veterans, and including the VA, help our veterans get better, both physically and mentally, then maybe we can start expanding things out. But we can't even take care of them, let alone everyone.
All right, well, thank you. I'll tell you what, why don't you just stay right up there?
Okay.
And you can go with your summary remarks. I would tell you that, I would like to remind you that, in case you did not get one of the questions that I asked the other candidate, if you'd like to address that question now, it'd be a great time to do it. But you get a minute and a half for your summary regardless.
All right, well, there is one thing that I haven't been asked that's going to differentiate me from a lot of the other folks, so I'll go ahead and state it now. North Carolina farmers have been struggling. They need federal aid. As a libertarian, you know, that's something that we typically don't support, but farming is the backbone of our country. Now, with that, I believe that at least on the federal level, the legalization of marijuana would help North Carolina have a sustainable cash crop, much like Denver and Washington. Now, a lot of people disagree with that, I understand, but a lot of that money goes into their education systems and their infrastructure, and it helps with the opioid crisis and stuff that they have there. It's just a very big topic, and I think it should be decided at the state level. So federally, I would support it, the legalization, and then the folks of North Carolina could support it either at the state or kick it out. But that would at least allow people to use banking systems and whatnot versus right now, even if it's legalized in the state, they have to keep cash on hand. So people are getting robbed and they can't use banks like we typically do. So that's,
Okay,
that's
anything
really
else
about
in
it.
summation? You got about 10 seconds.
Oh, I'm Shannon Bray, shannonbray.us if you want to know anything else. I'm heavily on Facebook, and if there's any questions you want to know, I'll do my best to do it. Other than that, that wraps me up.
All right, thank you. Tim Harris.
I am your peace, prosperity, and justice candidate. I'm the candidate who wants to go to Washington, who wants to end our authorization for the use of military force and get us out of 2 decades of wars that we didn't belong in and are dragging on and dragging on. Peace involves an active commitment to trading with other nations. Peaceful nations share goods, they share services. Why I'm going there? To end, or at least to oppose, our tariff system that our White House has imposed on us. When it comes to prosperity, it segues right into it. Farmers in this, Mr. Shannon Bray is correct. Farmers are struggling, and they're struggling in part because they cannot sell the things that they are producing in their fields. We have soybeans rotting. We have goods that can't cross borders. China is imposing tariffs on us. It's costing us $1.6 billion a day at this point. It's got to come to an end. Justice is as important as any of the other things that we as a nation are founded on. And justice involves ending the war on drugs. It's a travesty. It's expensive. We have put a generation of our young men in prisons for something that nobody should be in prison for. Nobody deserves to be locked up in a cage for sticking something in their body. It's their choices. We need major reform of our criminal justice system, particularly at the federal level, and that's one of the key planks of my platform is criminal justice reform. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I would like to thank both of these gentlemen. They had to scramble to get here. They both live out of the area, but we appreciate you coming by and participating. Thank you very much. And I'll turn it back over to the Red League.
I want to thank all of the candidates for participating in this forum, and thank you again to our corporate sponsor, Sanders Ford, and thank you to the City of Jacksonville for the use of these facilities and their media services. If you missed any part of the forum Onslow, just check the listings for G10 for rebroadcast dates and times. And remember, your vote does count. Absentee ballot request forms are now available online at the Onslow County Board of Elections website, as well as the dates, times, and location for the early one-stop voting. Election Day is April 30th from 6:30 until 6:30 a.m., 7:30 p.m. at your local precinct. On behalf of the Jacksonville Onslow Chamber of Commerce, thank you for joining us for our Meet the Candidates forum, and this concludes our program. Thank you.